What's up, everyone? Today is June 1st of 2023. In today's video, we're going to talk about how ancient mythology potentially dictates events that occur to this day in modern times, particularly ones that occur through the mainstream media. Earlier today, we were told that Joe Biden fell while delivering diplomas at an Air Force graduation ceremony. Now, understand, this is not the first video I've done on Joe Biden falling down and how it's connected to the ancient Roman god of Mercury. Back in 2021, you may recall that Joe Biden fell up the stairs. Now, when he did so, he was climbing into his airplane, which is called Air Force One. We're going to talk about how that video connects to this incident, which occurred at an Air Force graduation ceremony. Also, back in June of last year, Joe Biden fell off of his bike while riding in his home state of Delaware. That fell on Paul McCartney's birthday, and Joe's tumble occurred at a Continental crosswalk. Paul McCartney was in the Beatles, whose most famous album cover, Abbey Road, features the group walking across a Continental crosswalk. In 2021, when Biden fell up the stairs to Air Force One, this occurred on March 19th of that year. And what made that so significant is that earlier that year, in January of 2021, I talked about how there would be a major riddle connected to JFK on March 19th of that year. And this had to do with the fact that, primarily, it had been exactly 238 mercurial years, or orbits, since the assassination of JFK. Of course, Mercury, the god of travelers. JFK killed in a car, and then his replacement, LBJ, was sworn in on Air Force One, both methods of transportation. And of course, this connects to the planet Mercury, which we will examine as this post goes on. Now, as far as the 238, again, March 19th of 2021 was exactly 238 orbits of the planet Mercury after the death of JFK. 238 is the ordinal gematria of magic square of Mercury, and 260, which is the magic square's sum. When Joe Biden fell up the stairs that day, he was on his way to Emory University. And using the standard alphabetic order, Emory University sums to 238. On this channel, we talk extensively about the language of Gematria, an ancient, mystic, occulted practice that numbers the alphabetic order 1 through 26. Based on that ordinal method, we also get a small palette of numbers called the base 4 ciphers. These ciphers reversing or reducing the alphabet to get a new set of numbers connected to the same topic. In the reverse reduction method of Gematria, graduation sums to 61. Today's graduation ceremony fell on June 1st, the date written 6-1 here in the United States. Biden was speaking to graduates of the United States Air Force. Notice how the Air Force's original founding date was August 1st, which falls 61 days after today, 6-1. The Air Force is commonly abbreviated as USAF, and using the reverse alphabetic order, this sums to 61. So here we have a set of alignments connecting the news story to the date, but on this channel we dig much, much deeper. And in order to do this, we start with the day of the year, June 1st. On the Gregorian calendar, June 1st is the 152nd day of the year. Using the reverse alphabetic order, where Z is 1, Y is 2, all the way through A is 26, the name Joe Biden sums to 152. On top of that, JFK equals 152 in the Fibonacci method. And as I explained earlier, this just like the event on Air Force One from 2021 is completely connected to the numerology of John F. Kennedy. Using that same Fibonacci cipher, where JFK equals 152, the Fibonacci method is in the lower right corner of your screen. This one of 4 main mathematical ciphers. All of these are based on the alphabetic order, but apply basic mathematical functions to each number prior to adding it to the equation. Now, the Fibonacci number goes up to 13 and then back down. This is because if we went up to the 26th Fibonacci number, this is where things get impractical. The numbers become too large. So in that Fibonacci method, Joe Biden's full name, Joseph Robinette Biden, has a numeric value of 1,093. Using the reverse method with capital letters, Air Force equals 193. And think about the number 193 as the date, the 19th of March, 19/3, which is when Joe Biden fell up the stairs to Air Force One. Today is 193 days after Joe Biden's birthday, which falls on November 20th. Using the reverse alphabetic order, both John F. Kennedy and the word assassinated sum to 193. And when JFK was assassinated, he was exactly 193 mercurial orbits old. The planet Mercury, again, takes approximately 88 days to orbit the sun. And measuring from JFK's birth to his death, it was exactly 193 mercurial years. Well, this brings us to Joe Biden, who is currently 334 mercurial years old. This stands out because in the reverse order, the name John Fitzgerald Kennedy sums to 334. And JFK's entire life was coded around the planet Mercury. Using square numbers, which is another one of the 4 primary mathematical ciphers, squares yielding very large numbers. And as I look at this on the screen, I'm now realizing I never actually fixed this. So the squares looks like the trigonal method. For the sake of the video, let's pull it up here and show how in square numbers, the planet Mercury equals 1917. John F. Kennedy was born in the year 1917. And the numbers 19 and 17 appear in the gematria of both John Fitzgerald Kennedy and Joseph Robinette Biden. In numerology, zeros are ignored, so the 109 and 107 both represent 19 and 17. And when JFK was assassinated, he was even killed 1,917 days after the establishment of the Federal Aviation Administration. The Federal Aviation Administration has a logo with the winged foot of Hermes. And of course, Hermes, in Greek mythology, is equivalent to the Roman god of Mercury. So Mercury, Hermes, associated with this winged foot, which we of course see on the FAA's logo. And the FAA was founded on August 23rd. This is the date written 23/8, connecting back to what I said at the start of the video. Now, something also that also stands out about August 23rd is that this was the birthday of Kobe Bryant, born exactly 20 years after the founding of the FAA. Now, Kobe is one of the most famous basketball players of all time, tragically passing away in January of 2020. This is relevant because today is June 1st, which is, of course, the first day of the NBA Finals. The NBA Finals starting here on June 1st between the Nuggets and the Heat. And what's interesting is that this series is scheduled to go to June 18th. And in my last couple of videos, I said that there's a really strong riddle saying that the series might go to 7 games this year. And it's been 7 years since the finals went to 7 games. Well, June 18th is interesting because when I did that video on Joe Biden falling off of his bike, that was on Paul McCartney's birthday, and Paul McCartney was born on June 18th. So now Biden falls again, this time on June 1st. Could this be a clue? I don't know. This isn't a sports betting channel, but I do point out a lot of things that I find interesting. Now, in regards to basketball, Joe Biden has a very strong Mercury connection to the sport of basketball. In December of last year, basketball player Brittany Griner was freed from Russian custody when Joe Biden gave up a convicted arms dealer in return. Remember, Victor Bout was the Russian sent back to the USSR. And that was completely by the numbers. I'll actually add a link to my video on that below. Now, this is connected to Mercury because Brittany Griner plays for the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA. Now, Kobe Bryant died in connection to the planet Mercury as well. When Kobe had his helicopter crash in January of 2020, he was exactly 172 mercurial years old. And that number stands out in regards to Brittany Griner, who was arrested in Russia on the 17th of February, which is the date written 17/02. On today's date, when Joe Biden fell at the Air Force graduation, Brittany Griner is exactly 1,702 weeks old. Using reverse standard gematria, the name John Kennedy sums to 1,702. In fact, in reverse, John Kennedy equals 172 here as well. Today is also 172 days before Joe Biden's birthday. In ordinal, President Joe Biden equals 174. This is also the prime number value of the name Joe Biden. Today is 174 days before the anniversary of the JFK assassination, and it's also 233 days before Inauguration Day, the dates that Biden and Kennedy both took office. 233 is the ordinal sum of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. Next, we have another really strong element of this riddle that I want to go over. Now, it takes Mercury approximately 88 days to orbit the sun. United States Air Force sums to 88. You may also recall Brittany Griner was released on December 8th, or 12/8. But the synodic orbital period of Mercury is closer to 115 days. And this number 115 is what drives us through this next section. First of all, Brittany Griner's arrest fell exactly 1 year and 105 days before today's date. 1 year and 105 days is also 1 year and 15 weeks, representing 115. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, it was on a date with primary numerology of 115. His killing occurred by an assassin in a warehouse. The words killing and warehouse both equal 115. And today is exactly 115 weeks after Joe Biden fell up the stairs on Air Force One. Today, falling at the Air Force graduation. Using the alphabetic order, U.S. Air Force equals 115. This is also the value of Masonic in reverse. And it just so happens that the U.S. Air Force is 115 years old. If we instead count the number of days since the founding of the Air Force, we get this interesting number that ends in 308. And we can talk about the 42 to end this video. But first, let's start with this 308. Both Federal Aviation Administration and United States Air Force have gematria values of 308. Using the Latin order, Scottish Rite of Freemasonry equals 308. And again, remember, Masonic equals 115. So what's really happening here? Is this a manifestation of the ancient god of Mercury, or are we looking at a Masonic ritual of sorts? Remember, the global elite want us to be divided. That's the first goal. And having a president who can barely even stand up and walk across a stage is great for dividing the public. There's a lot of Masonic riddles with the Air Force, though, and I want to quickly explore these. The Air Force was originally founded in 1907. However, 40 years later, it was reestablished as an independent service. If you measure between these two dates, you get 40 years and 48 days. 448 is the ordinal value of ancient accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And this is the full name of Freemasonry as it's known in the United States. Now you'll notice the word "and" is there. However, as you see, the "and" down here can be omitted. But there's more Freemasonry riddles here. If we instead measure from the United Air Force's original founding date to today's news, we find that the Air Force is exactly 1,390 months old. This represents the number 139, which is the ordinal value of Freemasonry. 1,390 months is also equivalent to exactly 6,044 weeks. In the Latin method, Scottish Rite sums to 644. The Latin method, also called Agrippa's key. This is an extended cipher that I consider to be the most important in Gematria. On top of all this, today is also 59 years and 191 days after John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And John F. Kennedy and Jack Kennedy equals 59, just like Freemasonry. Whereas the word assassination sums to 191. So all of this lines up a little too well for me to think that any of this is pure coincidence. And again, what does this really speak to with our media? Before I finish this video, I want to touch again on this 42 because I skipped it earlier. I mentioned this 308, but it's actually been 42,308 days since the establishment of the Air Force. Let's quickly revisit my post from December, where I talked about how this was connected to the number 42. Now, Brittany Griner wears number 42 for the Phoenix Mercury. When she was returned from Russia back to the United States, it was exactly 42 years after the death of John Lennon, December 8th. And that's important because John Lennon once wrote a song called Back in the USSR. And in exchange for Brittany Griner, the United States sent convicted arms dealer Victor Bout back to the USSR. That was the first track on the White Album, which equals 42. Brittany Griner's birthday, the 18th of October, connects to the 42nd prime number, 181. The name Griner equals 181. Griner was released exactly 42 weeks to the day after she was arrested in Russia. And Russia sums to 42 with the S exception. John Lennon was even killed at the age of exactly 40 years and 2 months. And the name Lennon has matching gematria with 42. Griner's return to the United States was also 42 days after the signing of the Respect for Marriage Act. This act was signed by Nancy Pelosi, whose husband Paul Pelosi was attacked 42 days before that. And this is interesting because the attacker in that story, you know, the right or the conservatives were saying that it looked like there was a gay lover spat and that there was something more to it. And of course, this is all talking about the WNBA, where almost every player in the league is gay. So there's a lot more with that. Again, I'll try to link all of this work below, the posts and some of the videos. But I just wanted to talk about this because, once again, it's all connected to this ancient mythological god of Mercury, the god of travelers, which is so relevant to what we're seeing with the Air Force, right? Assassinations in cars, deaths in helicopters, all modes of transportation. All right, guys, that'll do it. Peace, love, God bless, and we'll talk to you next time. See ya.